Alright, what you see here is a Hunter Stratford ceiling fan. It is in the bright brass finish and I'm showing it with the rosewood blades. I got it off of Facebook Marketplace for a pretty decent price, for $20. And I say a pretty decent price for the fact that this fan is practically mint, considering that it was definitely installed in a kitchen. So, the fact that it cleaned up so nicely is definitely a good score. Originally, Sarah offered $15 for it, and I offered 20 only because he had a second fan that he was selling. It was just some generic polished brass hugger, cheap thingy of some sort, and I kind of figured I'd maybe just offer 20 that way I can kind of make up somewhat for not getting the other one and such. I'm not sure what he ended up doing with them, but it was more this fan that I felt was worth getting. But yeah. Picked this up with Nathan. It was actually in the city that I work in. It's like a town or two over and such, so it was pretty local. Didn't have to make a big far out drive to get it, like an hour away and such, like some of the other pickups. This one is from the first quarter of 2000. Pretty sure it's first quarter. I know it's from 2000, but I could be mistaken. Yeah, there's a tag up there, and there's the Hunter logo. Zoom in on it for a moment. But I mean, I just absolutely love how this fan looks with the rose blades and the glass that it has. I've always thought this to be a really nice combination. Would have liked it if it had more of an oak look for the other side. It's more of a lighter oak, but might just be the lighting down here that makes it look a lot more bright than it really is. But at the same time, I really do love how this fan looks. Rosewood was like the first option that they have for the blades, like as it was what it was showed on the box and such. But yeah. Fan does use the AirMax motor, as you can see. Pretty sure all of these use AirMax motors. These were introduced in the year 1999, and they were sold until the beginning of 2003. That was when they discontinued these. They sold these in white, antique brass, and a brick finish, and a brushed nickel finish as well. Though the latter two are definitely more harder to find than the other three. The white and bright brass definitely seems to be the more common finishes out of all of them. Yeah, it's definitely a big childhood fan for me. It's one of the first fans I remember from the Home Depot catalogs from 2001, 2002. So it was always a fan I really liked to look of and such as a kid. But yeah, it's actually this finish that they always showed it outside the box, so that they would show the other finishes in. But the other finishes are pretty childhood as well, but this one's definitely a pretty big childhood fan as well. Definitely want to find one in antique brass because that actually is more of a childhood fan in some ways, due to the fact that there's that church in the Dominican Republic with the brown and brass KDKs that has quite a few of them there and such. So seeing them with the rosewood blades and such, basically the exact same thing as it, except in antique brass. But it's basically the same exact thing. But yeah. Go ahead and show it with the light. I am using LEDs in it just because I figured I'd use clear ones especially, so it would look better. Could use incandescents that they're clear. I like the look of them more because they don't have those orange rods in them. Problem is, they kind of heat up quite a bit, and this basement is somewhat hot as it is, so I figured I'd use bulbs that don't produce so much heat. So here it is with the light. There we go. It's definitely probably my favorite shades that Hunter sold for the ceiling fans, to be honest. I've always liked the look of clear shades. And that's how trying to adjust the lighting. But I'm having the lighting around me to give a light test. See the fact that it has 4 lights also and lights up the space very well. So without further ado, let me go ahead and shut off the light. Start the fan off on no. Now, unfortunately, it does use the that newer Hunter mounting that they had in the late 90s. After they changed the mounting bracket to the one that you see here. I don't want to say I completely hate it. It's just, well, for this purpose, it's easier to install, but when it comes to installing it like in a natural area with a real ceiling and such, it's kind of tricky to install. And they are known to making the fan wobble a bit more as well. Now, Cold Maker did kind of customize one of the canopies from one of these type of fans to make it fit the pancake looking one that they would use from the early 90s. I think it was a good call. It's definitely, it's definitely the same thing. You can mount it with, you just make 3 extra holes on the canopy. I think this is the hands-free one, or it was either this or the other one that was a hands-free mounting system. I forget which one it is. I do like the look of the canopy on these ones more than the ones from the earlier 90s. I think it has a more clean look to it. But yeah, these were sold at Home Depot, as they were Home Depot exclusives back in the day. I remember way back when I first started collecting, there was one of these, I think on Craigslist it was. I was trying to pick up brand new in a box and then ended up getting sold to someone else. And I didn't even remember about that until I picked up this one. Now, when I saw this listing on Facebook Marketplace, I didn't know if it was a Summer Breeze Plus or a Stratford, because the way the pic showed it, it was from the top angle. And I could make out that there was 3 light shades, 3 or 4. I couldn't tell from the pic, but when I picked it up with Nathan, I noticed that it had 4, which I was kind of happy because I actually do like Stratford's a bit more than Summer Breeze Plus. And plus, I can always just put a 3 light on this and that would make it basically a Summer Breeze Plus. But also, Stratfords are more childhood for me, anyways. This is definitely a fan I can see installing in almost any room in the house: bedroom, living room, kitchen, dining room. I'd actually really consider putting this in the kitchen, to be honest. There was like a lot of homes I'd visit as a kid that had hundreds that are similar to this in the kitchen. And for some reason, this is just me, but if I was to put a fan in the kitchen, I'd definitely put something that's not extremely valuable. And although I really do like these fans, they're not like the most sought after fan compared to other hunters out there, like an Innova or Cool Revolutions, like more uncommon or almost rare stuff. The Home Depot not Home Depot, the low profile plus that's in my kitchen right now, that's kind of uncommon, but it's also a very easy fan that you can just make out of parts in a sense, since it uses this low profile 3 motor housing, switch housing and such. But the only thing you just really need is Hunter Augusta blades on it and the 4 light, and you can just make that into a low profile plus in a sense. Plus, these aren't the hardest fans to find because they were mass produced for Home Depot and such. So like something like this, I wouldn't mind putting in the kitchen, but like a chrome ceiling fan, like a Casablanca, I would not put that in the kitchen. Something where I know a fan, it's like I wouldn't mind it getting a little bit roughed up being in the kitchen over time. And this one, being in the kitchen for 20 years, so it's definitely held up well over the years. It really depends on the kitchen, but I'd rather put something that I don't mind getting grease all over it and such. Or like even a Verde Delta 2, that's actually when I would make an exception because those are hard to find, but they're not the most hard to find fan out there. They are more common compared to other rare fans. I'll show this up the light. Plus the color of the blades on this definitely would work with a lot of newer cabinets nowadays in terms of like the finish and such. Does have a tiny bit of a hum to it now that I'm noticing, but that is something I've heard that these are kind of known for humming, the Air Max ones. Just a tiny bit, it's nothing major. Now the Stratford 2s, those also have Air Max motors as well. The later ones didn't, from what I've known. Like not just the ones that had those different shaped blades, but ones that they had that were shown before, they changed the design with the blades and everything. I noticed that there are some of those that do have just regular spinner motor hunters in them. I think it was because Home Depot after a while they just figured, or I think Hunter just figured they just put more regular spinner motors in the Home Depot fans and use the Air Max motors for their more higher end stuff like in showrooms. But to pick something like this up at a home center back in the day is definitely much higher quality compared to like what you can find from Hunter at Home Depot nowadays. I mean, especially with the high speeds on you, like compared to what they have nowadays, it's not even near as close to what this can do on high speed. It's more like a medium-ish speed, if anything. Which is kind of sad, given the fact that Hunter's still a good brand. It's not as good as it used to be, but the fact that their home center ones have really took a dive in quality, and then they have some of the showroom ones that are much better quality. It's kind of sad that people can't really find more affordable Hunters that are of better quality like before at a affordable price. Yeah, let me go ahead and move it up to medium. One thing I don't like about these type of light kits is that the shades kind of loosen up pretty easily. An issue that I have with the Low Profile Plus, every now and then I had to tighten the shades to it. I mean, it's kind of the case of any fan for light kit in a sense. But with these ones, they kind of get loose a lot easier. But yeah, the person that sold it, he even knew that it was a pretty good fan compared to the other one. So he told me that he just replaced them just to change them out for a different style, which is understandable. Everybody has their own taste and such, and what they like. Some people don't mind stuff that looks a little bit more dated. Some people do. I do know of all this COVID stuff going on that a lot of people are taking advantage to update, renovate, and such. And when I mean a lot of people, I mean a lot of people. I've been seeing a lot of houses in my area being renovated and such. Some of them have decent stuff. I know it's a lot of them they've been selling them on marketplace, but it has been a lot of marketplace listings in my area. But some of it's cheaper stuff. Some of it's more better stuff like this, or even better like Casablanca and such. Like a lot of people getting new homes and such. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the taste that a person has. If they like brass, if they like black decor, or bronze decor, or white, nickel. It really depends. For me, I'm more of a person that not all the rooms would be the same. I kind of want to have like a different feel for each room. So it's not be like, oh, everything's one color type thing in each. That's just me, but like some room, like one room might have maybe like more bronze type stuff. One room might have more black stuff in it, or like more contemporary stuff, or more traditional. It really depends. It also depends like on the house too. But yeah, this is literally like the highest speed on most Hunter fans. I mean, I've been seeing some of the newer Hunters in my area that some places have been putting up, and this is like the fastest speed that they have, which is pretty sad. More the cheaper ones that they have though. I have been trying to test more of the fans I got. Not so recent like this one, but it's just one I've been really wanting to find for the longest time and try out. Plus, it's also a very big childhood fan, so I think I'm going to test it now. And then may either keep it here or bring it to the storage unit. I keep it here just because it's in really good shape, but I'm not 100% sure. Right. Now to move it up to high speed. I mean, yeah, like with the Stratford 2, they didn't change a whole lot to them except for like the blade arms and the light kit. Other than that, the motor design itself is pretty much the same. Now, I do like the Stratford 2 as well. I do like this one more just because I've always liked over 4 light fans more over ones with a bull light. And I think it's also the fact that during that time period, fans with bull lights weren't as, I don't know, maybe, I get, how do I say it? They were kind of trending, but they were kind of really starting to pick up around that time period. That was like the big new thing that a lot of people liked, so it kind of makes sense that they swapped out the Stratford for the Stratford 2, or like redesigned it in a sense. Another thing that's kind of stinks is that at least with the 4 I own like this, you get more light out of it and such, which is nicer. But yeah, no, it's definitely moving a very good amount of air. Some people say that these are a lot more powerful than a spinner motor Hunter. I can't say that they're a whole lot more powerful, but they definitely do move a bit more air than your generic 172 spinner motor Hunter and such. Something that a lot of people actually don't realize is all these Hunter fans from like the late '90s, early 2000s, of like that had the more 2000s look versus the '90s look, are actually better quality than a lot of the '90s models in terms of like the build and performance. Just a lot of people more have more nostalgia for the older ones, so they rather say that those are the better ones and the 2000s ones are not as good, but it's actually the exact opposite. These ones, the more 2000s look like the Passport 3 is definitely better built than the Passport 2. I have both, so I definitely can confirm that like the metal parts are definitely more solid and such. Not for all of them. I mean, there's some of them that aren't as powerful as like the '90s ones, but and there are some that aren't as well made. But during the 2000s, like the early 2000s, going into like the somewhat mid to late 2000s, the Hunter fans from that era were definitely stepped up their game and the quality without a question. Then they took a dive around like the 2008 ish, I'd say. Like with the Hunter Discovery, for example, even though that one's a good performing fan, the metal parts on that are definitely a lot more on the cheaper side compared to this one. It's definitely pushing a very good breeze. Yeah, it's definitely a very good air mover without question, especially for a home center Hunter fan and such. Well, back then they weren't um, cheap like more budget wise compared to like nowadays. In terms of like quality and such. Pretty sure these like retailed for about $100 back then, or maybe like 120 ish, maybe like 70 or $80. I'm not 100% sure. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off. Do the spin down. And then I'll show it in reverse. One thing that's pretty nice though is that the blades on this one are not badly warped and such, or I mean, because the area that was in it was more of like a kind of like a suburban area and such. It wasn't like close to the ocean, so that's probably explains why. Has a much quicker spin time than I thought it was gonna have, to be honest. Might be one of my quicker spin nuts I've had on any Hunter fan, to be honest. For the used ones, that is. Right, not showing on the reverse. I mean, it's not the quickest one I've seen, but certainly that the fan's 20 years old and it's used. Sometimes they usually have like at least a minute, like almost a 2 to 3 minute spin down. So it was kind of like half of that. Now, it could also be that maybe the fan. I know, like from what I've heard, people who sold it to me, they had just moved into that house, and they were like just updating some stuff, changing out to fit the style. So it could also be that the fan was sitting for quite some time, not being used, and that could have made the motor. Maybe it just needs to like be run a bit to loosen up and such. But yeah, it's definitely a very nice looking fan, especially with the lights on. I have seen some people paint these in a black finish. Um, there's a video of well, not this, but a Summer Breeze Plus being painted from bright brass to a black finish, and they like redid the blades like a grayish wood look, which I absolutely think they did a great job on it. I know a lot of people in the community are against that, but I'm honestly for people repainting a fan, especially if it's a vintage one or an older one that's better quality versus them replacing it with something that's newer, that's cheaper. Because as long as they, at least they're keeping the older fan or a fan that's better quality versus replacing it with something that's a lot um, cheaper in quality. Now, do I prefer that they leave it alone as they were from factory? Yeah, but I'm more for like if the fan's not in the best condition and such. If it's in a really nice condition like almost mint, I'd leave it alone. But it is up to the person. I've always thought about painting making one of these black, like when it's in bad shape. I do think that this in a gloss black finish would look really nice, especially with the rosewood blades and the light shades that it has. Obviously, I would not do it to this one. It's obviously something that I'd consider doing it at some point in the future if I was to find one that was in rougher shape. So definitely not a matte black finish. Definitely more of a gloss black, if anything. Oh wow, I didn't even realize how long the video is going. Maybe try to speed it up a bit. not surprised that it wobbles on reverse as well, but it kind of looks like it's wobbling a bit less, surprisingly. So on a few fans that wobbles less on the reverse that I have in my collection. Usually they wobble a lot more. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and set it off. Alright, and that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more videos to come.